Namaskar and a very good evening to everyone. 8th of December 2022. This is a Thursday evening, 8:45 p.m. and I just thought let's start the discussion today with the global markets. And we're looking at the SGX, which is up around 90 points, 18,817. That's a decent move coming in from the index as of now. So we don't mind this 100 points plus open in tomorrow's trade. Hopefully that's how the markets will mirror. But apart from that, the US markets are also positive. It's bouncing back. And I think in our yesterday's video, we did discuss about these levels and how important it is for the index to sustain this, or else further downsides can easily open up. So after 5 days of consecutive sell-off, the US markets are managing to bounce back. This sloping channel on the downside, finally the prices are trying to come out of that. Dow Jones also marking similar gains like the S&P 500. European markets completely flat. Crude is up 2.5%. And crude is in a strong downtrend. I think we did see that this correction on the weekly charts is close to 40%. Some amount of divergences are definitely shaping up over here, which means that this particular sell-off might slow down, maybe a consolidation before further weakness, or maybe a test of their levels of close to that 80 on the upside. Possible. Looks pretty strong over here on the smaller time frames. So there we are. US markets seems to be supporting SGX 90 odd points, and hopefully we'll get this kind of a move tomorrow at the open in the morning. Now let's go back to the indices and see what happened. Now Nifty was a tough day, I would say, and I would like to bring your attention to the 75-minute time frame, this particular opening bar. On the 75-minute time frame, we get 5 bars every day. And so if you notice, the very first bar was a pretty wide one. It's an outside bar. And the rest of the 4 bars essentially stayed within it, completely within it. And so the high of this particular bar, the low of this particular bar kind of restricted the entire movement for today's trade. It was choppy. We can see the next 2 bars, the index fell. The next 2 bars, the market went up. It was a stock-specific situation. Breakouts on the upside were slipping. One of our trades today that we did from the financial services pack did pretty good right after getting triggered, but then it slipped towards the afternoon. And I think that's fairly common across many stocks. I noticed that in quite a few stocks that morning breakouts tend to fizzle out towards the afternoon. Nevertheless, this channel on the downside is still intact. The short-term trend, which I'm using the 75-minute time frame to define, is still down but picking up a bit of momentum. No bias as of now from this particular time frame. The daily time frame I'm using for an intermediate point of view, and over here clearly a drop of the underlying momentum for the index. We discussed this gap up, which can act as immediate support for the index. We discussed this. Now with 90 points positive on the SGX Nifty, we should be eyeing somewhere here tomorrow morning, which should be a good one, should be a good move. However, I don't know what we will see tomorrow morning when we wake up from the SGX. If something turns around, just for the sake of this, I call this kind of bars, I have a name for this kind of bars, and I call them decoy bar. And this particular decoy bars, if the low is compromised, then I expect quite a swift move on the downside. But if tomorrow, if it mirrors the SGX and opens somewhere here, then this possibility is negated. So just for the records. So Nifty essentially going through a healthy corrective move after a pretty good high momentum up move. Bias from the daily time frame stays positive as long as the underlying trend is up. The momentum slowdown needs to reverse, and hopefully we will see that. So Nifty, we need to just wait and watch. But it's the banks and the bank Nifty which is truly exceptional. Now, at the close of last week's trade, I've been harping upon the point that wow, 9 consecutive weeks and this looks a little uncomfortable and all those things. But prices don't seem to bother that at all. Bank Nifty gave a phenomenal bounce back. We are on the verge of closing 10 consecutive positive weekly closes for the Bank Nifty. I don't actually recall seeing this kind of a move in the recent past. So is it stretched? Yes, by no means. It is pure support from the banks, and the PSU banks did a phenomenal role, which is supporting the index. There's no doubt about it. How long will this last? Well, my guess is as good as yours, but I am uncomfortable to trade at these junctures, or should I say to take positional trades at this point. I'm more comfortable taking at lower prices. Subtle things are very evident. Now, if you take a look at the Bank Nifty, then you will notice that the index is going up for the last 3 weeks. Short-term momentum is slowing down, which is evident here. This will be very stark on the charts of SBI. I'll show it to you a little later. But it continues to perform. It continues to support the index, and so be it. But as I said, I'm not comfortable chasing banks or the Bank Nifty at this juncture at all, right? Amongst the other sectoral indices, pharma was the biggest loser, and we got hurt in one of our positions. Lupin is a closed position there. We expected some bit of a bounce back, but the stock opened up on the downside to hit our stop loss, so that's gone. Dr. Reddy was picking up a bit of movement, but nothing over there, and Sun Pharma was the biggest drag in this pack. So pharma pack, let's not open Sun Pharma. I just want to spend some time on CNX Pharma. So CNX Pharma has clearly opened up on the downside, and it's kind of teasing with its previous swing lows very clearly. Will it just bounce back, or will it continue to drag? That needs to be seen, but pharma definitely not the underlying flavor of the market right now. It's the banks, it's the private banks which are doing good. It's the PSU banks which are doing phenomenally good, and I don't know when did I see this kind of a rally from the PSU banking back. But I have a little bit of interest in the CNX consumption. Now I have an outside bar here on the daily time frame. An outside bar is one where we get a higher high and a higher low, and the momentum slowdown is very evident on the shorter time frame. The higher time frames, if you take a look at the weekly chart, it's okay. Very clear signs of slowdown of the underlying momentum, but it's essentially going through a coil, where if you notice that the second leg of fall is much smaller than the previous leg of fall. If you notice, the next leg of rise is smaller than the previous leg of rise, and we call this some kind of a symmetrical triangular behavior or a coil, which evidently, like always, inevitably will give us a breakout. Now generally the breakout is expected in the direction of the previous trend, but then they at times also reverse and break down or break out on the downside. That needs to be seen from the higher time frame, that's the weekly chart. But what's there in the daily chart is I have a clear outside bar, and a movement beyond the outside bar's range generally decides the short-term trend. For example, if you bring your attention to this particular outside bar, this is an outside bar, and outside bar was followed by an inside bar which finally opened up on the upside. This outside bar's high was taken out here, which led to a nice two-day beautiful move for the stock. You can see over here also, this looks like an outside bar almost, and it opened up on the downside, which led to a 2 or 3 day kind of a move. So generally the range or the levels which an outside bar creates, once that level is taken out, up or down, generally we can expect a short-term movement. Now, considering the fact that the underlying momentum is slipping, the short term, we can expect a slip below this low, and if that happens, you can look at some stocks like Honeywell, like Voltas. If I take you to my list of the consumption stocks, then you will see that stocks like Dixon Technologies, Crompton, they have all fallen very, very sharp. You can take a look at Voltas. Voltas is an inside bar. And so if it kind of breaks below today's low, then it can bring in some weakness. Honeywell Automation also is an outside bar. It's a positive outside bar, but then momentum has clearly moved on the downside, and any kind of opening on the downside below today's low, 41,000, I think can lead to a short-term correction, 2 to 3 days. So CNX consumption is at a stage where it needs to decide. Very soon it will decide that which way it's going to give us a 2 to 3 day kind of a move. Time for some FII data, and we bring our attention to stockage, and yes, selling from the FIIs, around 1100 crores of selling, which is almost close to what the selling we saw in yesterday's trade. So this week so far it's been selling from the FIIs primarily. DIIs over the last 4 days have been primarily buying. Just 1 day of selling, but this was a pretty strong buy day. So nothing fancy coming in from that perspective, but I think FIIs find this market a little stretched to probably just a little bit of selling from their side. Now, to end today's market wrap, I would like to discuss a little bit about one interesting candidate, State Bank of India. Well, we know Bank Nifty and private banks, PSU banks have done phenomenal. There's no doubt about it. But what I've been noticing, and I've been keeping a very close eye on this particular stock, I love to trade SBI by the way, is a clean slant behavior between price and the second tier of momentum that I'm using on my charts. Now, these kind of slants generally suggest that the momentum is not there, which means that the health of the quality and the health of the rise is questionable, which means that if we see any kind of a breakdown, those can be traded. This particular behavior is very clean on the weekly charts also, if you notice. I need to show you a few more aspects. That is, this particular day the stock gave a nice breakout. It was a beautiful breakout, and in the next 2 days this breakout turned out to be a breakout failure. So it's a breakout failure. Now, this kind of a move, this kind of a behavior we had seen recently also. Now, this was not exactly a breakout failure because we did see some bit of a movement which was completely missing here. So I have a breakout failure in my hand as of now. If tomorrow it goes to 620 and higher, then this discussion, this hypothesis is out of the window. I have a pretty nice sharp 5 or was it 6 bar bounce back on the 75-minute time frame, and I think today's low and yesterday's low should be important levels for State Bank. If by any chance we see any weakness, because we all know how strong the banking pack has been playing a role. So my eyes on SBI is, number one, because of this, I'm not too keen on participating on the upside. In fact, I think a few days back when we were eyeing this breakout, I was in discussion with our mentorship traders community members, and I was saying that let it move. I'm not comfortable trading this. At least I know what I do not want to do. It turned out to be a good 1 day breakout. Could have been a very good intraday trade. Not a positional trade at all, but by no means it has slipped down. And so I'm not exactly bearish on SBI, but I'm looking out. I'll be keeping an extremely close eye on this particular counter, and hopefully, fingers crossed, if I get a good short signal, I will not hesitate to go for it, considering that the overall larger picture with the slant and with the breakout failure may give an extra buck or a little bit of alpha return to the anticipated short. Now, as I said earlier, this entire story hypothesis will completely go out for a toss if with the markets this guy bounces back and takes out this high and goes above 620. Gone. So this expectation is out of the window, right? So with that, I'll conclude today's discussion. I hope you've been trading well. For me, it's not been going good. Typically, difficult times getting onto the wrong trades, but hopefully it will reverse and we'll get chance to make up for these losses. Till then, take care of yourselves, trade well and trade wise.